Alright guys, so the next section that we are actually going to do is 9.4. We're not really skipping 9.3, but I incorporated it into 9.1, so we don't need to devote a section to it. So we're going to go to 9.4, which deals with dividing polynomials. And our goal for this video is to divide polynomials using long division. Now, this is actually something that you did last year. We spent a couple days on it. Hopefully we won't need to spend as much time on it this year since you've done it before. Before we begin, I want to take care of some vocab. So I have this polynomial right here, this 4-term cubic, and we want to divide that by this linear binomial here. This thing, the thing that is being divided, we call that the dividend. Okay, the thing that's doing the dividing is called the divisor. And I will use those words, so you definitely want to make sure that you know which is which. Now, once we get an answer to this division problem, we call that the quotient. When you start a division problem, you always want to make sure that your dividend and your divisor are in standard form. Okay, which we are pretty used to having stuff in standard form, so that's usually not a big deal. Also, once you do the division, a really important fact that will really help us over and over again is that when the remainder of the division problem is 0, then the divisor is a factor of the dividend. And again, that actually will help us a lot in this section and in this whole chapter. Alright, so let's actually do this division from the problem above. I'm going to put the dividend, x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x minus 12. I'm going to put that underneath a division sign, and then I'll put the divisor out here. Now, one thing I do want to note is that you notice that the terms, they decrease very nicely. We go from x cubed to x squared to x, and then to no x at all. We're not skipping any terms there. Every term is represented. Sometimes you may find it necessary to put in a placeholder. If we, for instance, if we didn't have the x squared term, I would need to put in a 0x squared there. Okay. To start the division, you actually kind of ignore the minus 2 and all of this stuff over here. You look at the x and the x cubed, and you ask yourself, x times what gets me x cubed? Well, that answer would be x squared. So we got that by asking ourselves, x times what gets us x cubed? And the answer to that question is x squared. Now, I like to write that right above the x squared term. I like things to line up nicely. It helps me stay organized, and I recommend that you do that too. Now we have to get ready for some subtraction. So I usually put a subtraction sign here, and I do a set of parentheses. And I have that parenthesis, the last parenthesis, go to this x squared term. Okay, because that's where we had just put part of our quotient. I have to get ready to do some subtraction. What I do is I take this x squared and I multiply it by x minus 2. And I would get x cubed minus 2x squared. And we do some division. And the nice thing here is that x cubed minus x cubed, those cancel. If that ever doesn't cancel, you've done something wrong. And then 3x squared minus a negative, that actually becomes addition. And so I have 5x squared. And then I bring down the other terms. And I repeat the process. I ignore the minus 2 and all this other stuff here, and I ask myself, x times what gets me 5x squared? And that answer would be 5x. And I like to write that above the x term of the dividend. And then I get ready to do some subtraction. I make my parentheses go out to the negative 4x. And this time I take 5x times x minus 2, which is 5x squared minus 10x. And I do that subtraction. Again, the 5x squareds, they cancel, and here I have negative 4x, and that ends up being plus 10x, which is 6x, and I bring down the minus 12. And I repeat the process one more time. X times what gets me 6x? Well, that answer is pretty easy. That's just 6. And I get ready to do some subtraction, and I take 6 times x minus 2, which is 6x minus 12. And everything cancels out very nicely here. I get a 0, so I get a remainder of 0. Because that happened, I know that x minus 2 is a factor of the dividend. And x squared plus 5x plus 6, that's my quotient, which is also a factor of the dividend. Okay, let's flip this over. We've got one more problem, practice problem to do. And this one's a good one because we need some placeholders for 0. My dividend goes from x cubed to x squared right down to 4. It's like I don't have an x term, so I'm going to put that in. X cubed minus x squared plus 0x minus 4. Now, luckily that doesn't happen with my dividend. Now, that dividend looks complicated, but this division problem actually won't be that bad. So x squared times what gets me x cubed? Well, that answer is just x. Now I make my parentheses go all the way out to the 0x term. And x times my divisor gives me x cubed plus x squared plus 2x. I do that subtraction. The x cubes cancel. X squared minus x squared is negative 2x squared. 0 minus 2 is negative 2x, and then I bring down the minus 4. And I ask myself, x squared times what gets me negative 2x squared, and that answer is negative 2. Get ready to do some subtraction. So negative 2 times my divisor is negative 2x squared minus 2x minus 4. The x squareds are going to cancel. The x's are going to cancel, and the 4's. So again, I get a remainder of 0. So x minus 2, that's my quotient. And this means that my divisor is a factor of the dividend. All right, and that's all we got.